let's now jump into the actual breaking down. So what have we kind of just, again, big picture. So we've learned that CBN did not ban crypto, right? All they did was to say financial institutions, which they regulate, so regulated by CBN, right, cannot operate accounts for crypto providers. Right. This came in, I think, 2021. Right. So if you do a timeline, right, if you do a timeline, what we would see is that there was, let's say, there are probably 3 points that we care about, right? So there was pre-2021, 2021, and there is 2023, let's say December, right? And so here, everyone did whatever they liked. Everything goes, right? In 2021, CBN said FIs, financial institutions, don't operate accounts for crypto. This essentially meant that crypto companies struggled, one, to have Naira to be able to give people. Two, and I think if you remember this time, you started seeing things like Kuda, Access Bank, shutting down accounts that were crypto related. So if you were using some crypto company, you see that your account was frozen or suspended. So that was kind of happening in 2021. And that was because of this mandate that CBN gave. And now in 2023, CBN is saying, okay, there are a couple of things. I now recognize digital assets, right, which are tokens and crypto. Crypto is a token. I'm also not the regulator. So the SEC is the regulator for anything digital assets. Banks or FIs, I'm reversing my position. You can deal with them now, but within certain guidelines. Right? And more importantly, I'm going to tell you what you cannot do with the money. So this is like a big picture of the entire kind of CBN regulation and what they're thinking, right? I'm going to just pause here. Any questions in the meantime before I kind of dig deeper? So this is just kind of setting the stage so that everyone's like on the same page. I'm not able to see comments in the chat, by the way, just in case. So if there are, just let me know. Okay. So I'm going to move on. So now that we understand the big picture, I guess the next thing to look at is to say, so we now understand CBN's position on regulation. It didn't actually regulate crypto. What it is, it told the FIs don't operate accounts. So who truly regulates crypto is actually the SEC, right? And let me use this chance to kind of just, for those that might not be super fintech heavy, let me try and just do a side-by-side comparison between a normal fintech and crypto fintech and just put this into perspective. I promise after this, I will go into the cocoa of the matter, right? So let's divide this into two. Let's say these are customers. So this is normal fintech today. So these are customers. This is your fintech. think of your fintech as an enabler, right? This is your fintech. And then here is what I would call normally your value storage provider. In our case, this is just a bank, right? So you hear a lot that your fintechs cannot do what they do without the bank. And this is why. If customers want to interact, send money within themselves, or whatever the case, that money is enabled, that transfer is enabled via the fintech, but the money really sits in a bank. So I think that's clear. Now let's go to the fintech side. What does this look like on the fintech side? Very similar, but with a few exceptions. So again, we have our customers here. We have, and this is a super simplified way, by the way. We have our crypto fintech, which I think now they're being called VASPs, right? And I will split it into two. So on one side, you have your value storage provider. Again, your bank. And I'll talk about this. But then you have a second side where you have typically an exchange. And then you have another value storage, I would say provider or owner, right? So let me go through this very quickly. And hopefully I haven't, hopefully I haven't confused, sorry, I keep making a mistake. Hopefully I haven't confused anybody. So you have your customers on this side, right? So your customers want to trade Naira or off-ramp. Let's go through two use cases. Your customers have a crypto assets. Let's say they have a token called Amala. I like Amala. So they have 3 Amala tokens that they want to sell, right? And they want to convert it to Naira. So those customers come to your fintech, let's say like your Busha. Busha is actually not the owner of the Amala token, right? So let me put my Amala token here. So this is Amala. This is the token, right? So this is like a Busha. Busha now goes on exchange, and this exchange has like different tokens. They have Amala token, they have EBA token, Inyon token, Pomo token. They have all the different kind of tokens, right? And so it's very similar. So this is an exchange where someone who operates has different tokens. People also store their tokens on the exchange, but then there's the owner of the exchange itself. So like Bitcoin, there are people, forget the fact that it's meant to be, what is it called, non-centralized. But essentially, in some cases, someone owns the crypto or at least controls the distribution of the crypto assets. There's an exchange where that holds multiple assets, and your crypto enables you to transact like that. So if I was to say, hey, what does CBN regulate? It would be easier now. On the fintech side, CBN regulates the value storage. On the crypto side, the value storage is still regulated by CBN because it's still exactly the same thing. It's your bank. Your bank holds fiat here, which is Naira. It holds fiat here, which is Naira. It's exactly the same thing. They're doing the same thing. What makes it different is, and I'll just put that in a color, is this activity in this orange box. This activity is where you have your digital assets, right? And that's why it's like anything that's an asset that gives investments, this is where your SEC must come in. So this also explains why it's now the SEC that is regulating this VASP. Hopefully that's clear. Again, just trying to make everybody be on the same page as to why there's a different regulator, how the whole thing kind of works, etc. Right. So crystal clear. Any questions? Because as I go into it, there's a reason why I'm starting here. As I go deeper into it, I'll probably be coming back to this diagram. Okay. So I've talked about the timeline. We've talked about why crypto. we talked about what the regulation actually says. We've given a timeline. We've just done big picture to understand how the crypto operations is slightly different from the fintech operations. So we're going to go into what did the regulation actually say, right? So let me just, so what did the regulation say? And I think, I kind of touched that just at the start very briefly. If I was to summarize it, regulation essentially says probably 4 or 5 things. One, fintech and crypto is one or two things. You're either a VASP, which is the virtual assets service provider. So I'm going to use an example here, Busha. I love them, by the way. Or you are what they call a DA, which is a digital asset exchange. Remember what I said about my Amala token, right? So in this case, these are the owners of the Amala token, right? And here, these guys just hold for different users all the different tokens, Amala, EBA, Ewedu, they hold all those tokens, right? And so, or in this case, sorry, let me take a step back. My apologies, so I don't confuse you. Right? They're basically saying in their own, right? They're saying, we don't think for now anyone in Nigeria is going to create a brand new token, like a brand new, like cryptocurrency. We don't think so, right? But if you are going to do it, or you're going to get an exchange that literally holds those things, the fintech equivalents that we have in banking today, we're going to call them this VASP. They're just the enabler, right? So I really want to just clarify this. Enabler, this is the holder of the assets. Okay, so this is the first thing that they define in the regulation. The second thing that then gets defined is we talked about the SEC, we talked about all of that stuff. The second thing that gets defined that becomes really clear is then to say, okay, who can these guys transact with? So I'm taking this fintech, let's call them by their now new name, VASP. And we're saying, who can this VASP transact with? Or more importantly, in this case, is who can bank me? Remember, if we go back, what the CBN say? CBN told banks, hey, do not operate accounts for crypto companies, right? So we now need to be clear, who can actually give us bank accounts? And I know how we normally do it in fintech. So we're like, PSSP, these are our normal fintech. Can they bank us? No, X. Then we're like, okay, don't worry, we're clever. If it's not PSSP, I have MFB. CBN is not smart. Can they bank me? No. Right? Okay. Well, these BDC guys, they always have a way of doing this thing. Can the BDC bank me? No. Right? So the question now is, who's left? You only have your standard commercial bank or your merchant bank. For this conversation, assume your commercial and merchant bank are the same thing. It's easier. Most of us just with commercial banks. Your merchant bank can be I think there are a few merchant banks in Nigeria, but just think of them like your investment bank. The way you have your Goldman Sachs, etc. Those are just very big merchant banks in different countries. But for everybody, just assume that your commercial bank and merchant bank, they are the same. So only these guys can bank a VASP. And the easiest way to remember is really people that can do stuff with FX. But Dara, what do you mean? Your BDC can do stuff with FX? Yes. But your BDC regulation is actually limited to doing physical things around. So just so that you know, the BDC regulation doesn't actually permit BDCs to digitally change your money. They're actually meant to do it physically, right? Did they do? They have a lot of people digitize the flow, yes, but the regulation of BDC actually sticks to physical stuff, right? I think the earlier regulations limited them to an operating radius of their office. This was a very long time ago, but they're not meant to be digital, right? It's meant to be physical. So that's what the difference is. Now, this is where things start to get interesting. So now that we know that there's a VASP and a commercial bank can hold their money, what are the limitations? And I think these limitations are important both for the fintech and then the bank. Let me start with the bank. Why is it important for the bank? Because if the banks cannot find ways to make money from it, they won't do it. And that would impact the VASPs. It's just that simple. Banks do stuff because there's money in it for them. If there's no money in it for them, then the bank's just not going to do it. And so you're going to struggle. You're going to be like, banks don't want to do stuff with fintech. They are scared of fintech. No, banks only do stuff that brings them money, period. So if it doesn't bring them money, then they're most likely not going to do it. So what are these limitations or these limitations that they put on the banks, on the banking relationship between these two? Don't worry, I'll probably round up like in the next 5 minutes. So the first thing it said is there must be a designated bank account. And this is where the problem starts. There must be a designated bank account. It is clear. So if, for instance, let's say Kuda that does multiple things, Kuda is a fintech, then MFB, maybe they have some other license. If they decided to that, hey, they like virtual assets and decide that they want to create a new arm that becomes a VASP, no problem. There must be a dedicated account for VASP activity only. It must not be the part of the other bank accounts that they had before. And so this is where you start seeing that what was a love letter has started to become something else. First and foremost, what comes with this designated accounting? The moment you want to do this, there is one, increased reporting. Now, the reporting guidelines are not that bad, but the reporting feels to me like MFB level reporting. Maybe it's like 2 steps down. But it does mean that every transaction that you do, CBN needs to be able to see that transaction, right? And why do I mention this is that the reality is that most fintechs, they don't have reporting today. They don't even know what that means. They also don't have the people, which means they don't have the skill in case they hire someone and is doing it wrong. And most people have not paid fines before. So there's a whole gap in terms of like just risk that the fintechs don't know how to do, right? And CBN is not going to say, or the SEC is not going to say, oh, you're a fintech, you don't know how to do it. Hey, okay, I forgive you. No, they're going to fine you, right? Don't worry, I received my own fair number of fines before. They will fine you. They will say, yeah, sorry, just accept the fine first. And by the way, every day you're not compliant with this thing, we will keep charging you. And that's how they work. It's on a daily basis. It's like buying credits day by day. You know those daily stuff that will expire in 24 hours. And the next day they'll count it as well. So until you fulfill it, you just keep racking up fines. So that's one. Now this designated account is Naira only, which on the surface doesn't sound bad, but we'll see. It's Naira only. Then they say, hey, by the way, you have to have 150% liquidity based on your net debits. Now, for you that are saying, what is net debits? Trust me, I did not know it too until I came to payments log fintech class. So I only learned it like 6 months ago. So if I mess it up, I don't want to embarrass myself in front of my teacher. But essentially, it's saying that if you are a busher, right, the money that you send out and the money that you send that comes in, if you subtract them from each other, that's amount that's left in between. That's your net debit. So essentially, they're saying, okay, if you look at how much turnover happens in your account, please, teacher, if I'm wrong, don't correct me. Just correct me after this class, please. Thank you. But if you look at that amount in your account, okay, good. When you look at everything, your account normally is like 100 million naira, no problem. Go and bring 150% of that and put it in your designated accounts. So if you now gain one customer that has a lot of money, like Hush Puppy, he comes, he says, I want to use your crypto account. And he starts to move 500 million. You are going to have to go and get, and if he's doing 500 million and not enough money is going out, so essentially it affects your net debit account. You're going to have to put 150 million of that money essentially. So it means that fintechs who don't have that money, because don't forget, when funding winter, that winter already lasted 1 year. As Olumide said, it's going to last another year. So what I see, this is Dara's take, fintechs that don't have money are going to chill. Period. There's no gainsay about it. So, and as part of my kind of takeaways, it is the non-Nigerian fintechs, like a yellow card, that will say, oh yeah, no, we can quickly raise this money from our foreign investors. And the foreign investors will say, oh yeah, you're an American company. I like you guys. Here's some additional money. They're the kind of companies that will be able to take care of this kind of situation. So if you thought the 150% was bad, there's more. Settlement is T plus 3 days. So when you look at that 150% definition I was giving you, and that's net debits. That net debit was on a daily basis. So you now have to say, hey, what is the transaction volume we're going to have for 3 days? And from an operational standpoint, you as a fintech, you need to make sure that 3 days money is sitting in your account. Right? So again, there's need for more money. If you are already cold from the fintech winter, it's about to get colder. If you are in this crypto space, and when you saw this, you thought 2014 is the year you guys are going to blow and be on TechCrunch. My brother or sister, it might not be the year based on this. Then, by the way, all money that you have in this account, right? So let's just put a figure. Let's say, you know, your transaction volume was like, and the net debit was like 100 million, right? So you have to put 250 million in the account. Then when you realize that your settlement is T plus 3 days, maybe somehow you do the maths, you have to have 400 M of liquidity. No problem. You finally do that, you put 400 M here. CBN says all monies in this account cannot bear interest. It didn't say that the bank cannot use the money. You say you, the person that put 400 million, cannot bear interest. So if you put 400 million there at the start of the year and come back next year and say, let me see that 400 million, it's going to be exactly 400 million. It's not going to change. It's not going to be 401. They won't deduct the bank charges from that account, by the way. So that money will not rise. Then you're like, we promised board members, we're taking this 400 million. Is in the account, it cannot bear interest. Okay, you know what? Since it's 400 million in the account, let's use it to get loan from the bank. No problem. CBN says that money, it cannot be collateral for anything. Okay. So we now have 400 million sitting there. We can't get interest on it. It can't be collateral for anything else. Surely, this is the end of all the bad news. No. So it then says, hey, by the way, that money in that account, right? Any debits on this account, you can only use it for the Naira position in your transaction. Okay. This is not clear. What does this mean? You know how, let's go back to my Amala token. I really like Amala. So let's say my Amala, for every one Amala, it is 100 Naira, right? So 100 Naira for every one Amala token. Let's just do it. Okay, brilliant. Right. So it's saying, hey, Dara wants to convert one Amala token. This is my Amala sign to Naira. So to give me 100. Right, no problem. You can use that money here for my 100 Naira payouts. That's fine. But if Dara wanted to take 100 Naira to buy one Amala token, right? This money that I'm using, this 100 Naira, sure, it can go to that account. But if at any point you as the fintech, you run out of money and you want to go and buy extra Amala tokens because you know that it is in demand and you want to use the Naira in this account, you can't do that. You have to go and get money from somewhere else to buy tokens or whatever it is that you do as a fintech. It's not the money from this account. So you're like, okay, so I need extra money beyond the 400 million in my account if I want to buy some currencies or hold something to sell to my customers because I know that they need it. Okay. Is there anything else? Because surely this is the end. There can't be anything else. They're like, yeah, there's one more. So you know how you can't use it, you can only use it for Naira? Yeah, I just want to be very clear. You cannot use it to facilitate any FX transactions. Right? So you know how I said, hey, you might decide, hey, you want to use that Naira to go and buy, Bitcoins or Ethereum or whatever it is, you can't do that. So let me be clear, just so that. And so you're like, okay, come on, this must be it. Like, there's so much restriction that it doesn't make sense for me to go into it. Then, yeah, they're like, you must give blood. You must be regulated by the SEC, right? So you must have gone through that process with the SEC. You must have done everything, gotten your license, paid that fee, and then when you get that, just as a reminder, when you get that and all of that, you now become a VASP. You find a bank is like, yeah, I want to partner with you. You're like, good, we're going to make money this year. So they're like, go and open this designated account. When you open it, you must start reporting. So you must go and hire some more people, right? Then you can only put Naira in it. And by the way, when you put Naira in it, when you look at the transactions you are doing, you need to put 150% liquidity in that. So again, you need to have more money. Then your settlement is T plus 3 days. So you're still going to have more liquidity because not only do you need to cover this, but you need to make sure that operationally, when your customers want to take their Amala tokens and convert it to Naira, you can pay them immediately. And when they give you Naira and convert it to Amala tokens, you must be able to give them the Amala tokens immediately. So you need more money. And then any money you put in that account cannot bear interest. You can't use it to collateralize anything else. And any debit on this account must always be for the Naira leg of your transactions. And just in case you're not sure, it means you can also not use it to facilitate any FX transaction, and you must be registered by the SEC. So this is a lot. So there's a lot of initial happiness. Yay, CBN regulation. It's a positive step. But is it the step you and I were hoping for? Maybe not. So after all of this, now that our bubble has been burst, we're now okay. So Dara, what do we see for 2024 and beyond?